Hi everyone. I've posted before on something that I call Zigzag Think. It's a kind of alternative way of looking at society, life, the universe and everything. And because it's quite difficult to explain what it is, I find the easiest way to shine a light on it is through examples. Here's another example of Zigzag Think. Back in the 80s, when the rock band Van Halen were at their height, they traveled with an enormous amount of equipment, very, very expensive lighting equipment and sound equipment and other techniques that gave their performances the edge and made them the sensation that they were. They traveled from city to city and from country to country, and in that time they had to be certain that their team would be safe, and of course that the equipment would not be wrecked by roadies and organizations in other cities through which they traveled and performed. And someone came up with an idea, and it was this. They would give their standard contract, which was long, hundreds of pages, I understand. And that was normal. And as usually happened at the time, managers or promoters in local towns wouldn't bother reading the contract. Nobody had the time, so they would just sign at the bottom and initial where they had to and hope for the best. But Van Halen, the band, had to be certain that every clause regarding the way the equipment was handled and the team were looked after was understood and accounted for. And so they came up with this idea. Buried deep in the contract was a very unusual clause, and it said that a bowl of brown M&M sweets had to be left in the green room before Van Halen performed. It's one of the oddest things I've ever read, and it's certainly something that has been discussed in the halls of rock and roll fame for a long time. The reason Van Halen put that they wanted brown M&Ms was not because any of them particularly liked brown M&Ms. It was because they wanted to be sure that the contract had been read and understood, and if the clause which asked for brown M&Ms had been taken care of and that there were brown M&Ms there, it showed them and their manager visually and instantly that the contract had been read and that they, as performers and the team as the backup, would be safe on stage. I love it because it's such a clear example of what I call Zigzag Think.